I could still hear the kettle whispering behind me when the phone buzzed, a sharp little vibration that cut through the quiet of my morning. I didn't expect trouble. I didn't expect my own child to sound irritated before I even said hello. But that's how the day cracked open, like a door shoved by a sudden wind. "Mom, stop asking about your pension," he snapped. "It's gone." His words hit me so fast I felt the breath leave me. "Gone?" My heart gave a strange tremble, something between disbelief and an ache rising like smoke. For a moment I stared at the wall, trying to understand if I heard him right. "Gone?" My voice came out thin, almost fluttering. "What do you mean, gone?" He exhaled loudly, like he was exhausted just speaking to me. It stung in a way I didn't want to admit. I felt something rough tighten in my chest as I leaned against the counter, needing its steadiness. That pension was supposed to carry me through my later years, something I had earned after decades of double shifts, long nights, and holding this family together even when my bones wanted to rest. And now he was telling me it had vanished like it was nothing more than loose change. If you're still here with me, tell me what city you're watching from. Every comment you leave feels like another step we take together in this story. And if this one touched your heart, tap the like button so more people can hear it too. Hey y'all, this is Grandma Nell speaking. Pull up a chair, sweetheart. Let me walk you through what happened next, because the truth didn't just fall into my lap. It showed itself when I pushed past my fear and stepped into that bank. I tried to form another question, but he cut me off with a sharp, "Look, don't worry about it. We used it, okay? It's handled." Those words bit in deeper. Before I could speak again, he muttered something about being busy and hung up. Just like that. I stood there listening to the deadline, feeling a warm sting gather in my eyes. I wiped my face, frustrated with the tremble in my hands. The sky was a soft grey when I arrived, the kind that looks like it's holding back a sigh. As I stepped inside, the cool air brushed against my cheeks, clearing the leftover thickness in my chest. I greeted the teller, trying to keep my voice steady, though a wave of nerves fluttered deep inside me. I asked to speak with the manager, and while waiting, I could feel my palms growing warm, almost damp. Something inside whispered that today would reveal more than I was ready for. When the manager finally approached, he gave me a polite smile, one that softened just a bit when he noticed how tightly I clutched my little purse. "Come with me," he said gently. I followed him into a quiet office tucked in the back, the door clicking shut behind us with a sound that made my heart twitch. My breath caught when he pulled out a thick folder from a locked drawer. It landed on the desk with a soft thud that felt heavier than paper. "I believe this is what you need to see," he said. My throat tightened, my fingers trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were printed statements, signatures, authorization slips, and then a grainy, still image from security footage. My son, standing right there at the counter, signing away access to my pension account. I felt a soft whimper leave me as a wave of heat flushed across my face. Oh, mercy. The manager watched me carefully, his voice low, steady. "There's more." He reached into the folder again and pulled out a sealed envelope. My breath shivered as I recognized the handwriting on the front, my late husband's. The sight of his familiar looping letters made my knees weaken. For a moment, I felt his presence, like a warm hand resting on my shoulder. Opening the envelope was like pulling open a door to an old room I hadn't stepped into in years. Inside was a notarized statement dated years before his passing. My husband had left me full control over our son's business accounts I didn't even know existed. A small gasp escaped me, almost of trembling awe. My eyes blurred with tears as I read the note he had left alongside the documents. "If things ever go wrong, protect yourself." My breath hitched. My husband had known. He had seen something coming long before I did. I looked at the manager, my voice breaking slightly. "Why didn't anyone tell me sooner?" He gave a soft shake of his head. "It was set to be released only if certain activities occurred on your personal accounts. Those activities happened this week." He paused. "I'm truly sorry." A wave of cold swept through me, followed by a strange, rising strength. I wiped my face, exhaling shakily. There was pain, yes, but underneath it something else began to stir, like steady embers glowing beneath ash. My son had taken my pension, but he had no idea the ground he walked on was never really his. I closed the folder, the sound firm, decisive. I felt something strengthen inside me as I straightened my back, letting out a soft breath that felt almost like a quiet laugh mixed with a sigh. My hands no longer trembled. I didn't know yet what I would say to him. I didn't know how deep this betrayal went, but I knew one thing: the next steps would not be the ones he expected from me. Not this time. The door to the bank hadn't even closed behind me when my knees almost buckled. I had to steady myself against the cool brick wall outside, drawing a shaky breath as the world around me blurred for a second. Cars rolled by, a distant horn echoed, someone laughed across the street. Life kept moving, unaware that a piece of mine had just cracked open. My fingers tingled, and a soft, broken hum slit from my throat, something between disbelief and a wounded whisper. I wasn't sure if I wanted to cry or shout or just sit on that sidewalk until every feeling passed. Standing there, I kept thinking about the boy I raised. The child who used to run into my arms smelling like summer grass, calling me his safe place. Now he had taken the money meant to protect me in my old age and spoken to me as if I was some burden he needed to swat away. The contrast made my chest twist sharply. Ah, Lord, how did we get here? A cool breeze pushed against my face, grounding me enough to start walking toward the bus stop. With each step, memories rose like fog. Moments of me working late shifts, skipping my own needs, tucking a few dollars away whenever I could. Not for luxury, not for show, just for dignity, for survival, for peace in my later years. And now the person who should have been my protector had turned into the one I needed protection from. As I waited for the bus, an older gentleman sitting nearby glanced at me. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked gently. His voice had that warm, neighborly tone that made something in me soften for a moment. I cleared my throat, forcing a small smile even though my insides trembled. "Just thinking about life, that's all." He nodded knowingly, as if that was enough explanation. Sometimes strangers understand us better than our own kin. When the bus finally arrived and the doors opened with a hiss, I stepped inside and slid into a seat by the window. The hum of the engine vibrated through the floor, and my reflection in the glass startled me. My eyes looked older, heavier, carrying weight that wasn't there yesterday. As the city began to roll past, I whispered a quiet breath, feeling tears threaten again. "Oh!" I pressed 2 fingers against my lips and shook my head gently. No more crying right now, not until I understood my next step. My thoughts spiraled around the envelope. That old, unexpected lifeline from my husband. I kept seeing his handwriting in my mind, the way he always made his letters curve, like he believed softness mattered even on paper. If things ever go wrong, protect yourself. Those words echoed through me like a steady drumbeat. He had seen something in our son long before I did. Maybe a selfish streak, maybe a fragile character bending too easily toward temptation, maybe a lack of gratitude. The bus jolted over a bump, pulling me from my thoughts. That's when another feeling began rising inside me, not fury, not despair, but something steadier. A quiet resolve, a slow burning strength that warmed the coldness inside my chest. Yes, I was hurt. Deeply. But I was not powerless. Not with what my husband left behind, not with the truth sitting in that folder at the bank. When I reached my stop, I stepped off and started down the long sidewalk toward home. The sun peeked through the clouds, brushing a soft warmth along my cheek, almost like reassurance. I carried that feeling with me as I reached my porch, hands trembling just a little when I unlocked the door. Inside, the silence wrapped around me. I set my purse down and sat at the dining table, pressing my fingers together until my knuckles warmed. My mind drifted back to the last real conversation I'd had with my son, the one before all this ugliness took root. He had come over for dinner months ago, laughing, telling stories about work, acting like everything between us was just fine. He had hugged me that night, a long hug, a warm hug. And somewhere inside it, I now realized, he had already decided to take what wasn't his. A soft, pained sound slipped out of me. Not quite weeping, but close. My throat tightened as memories of him as a toddler flashed through my mind. His bright eyes, his hand gripping my shirt, his squeaky little laugh. Sometimes I wonder if children realize when they begin drifting from who they once were. I wiped my eyes and straightened my back. I had decisions to make. I wasn't going to storm into his home, screaming or accusing. That's not my way. Instead, I would move with quiet, deliberate steps. I would gather information, understand what he had done, how deep the damage went, and what those business accounts meant for my future and his. The folder, the documents, the sight of my husband's signature. They circled in my mind like glowing lanterns guiding me through the dark. I stood and walked to my bedroom closet, reaching for the small fireproof box where I kept important papers. My hands felt steadier than they had all morning. I placed the envelope safely inside, letting my fingers linger on the metal edge before closing it gently. As I turned to leave the room, my phone buzzed. For a split second, my heart jumped. Maybe it was him, maybe he felt guilty, maybe he wanted to apologize. But the screen showed a text from my daughter-in-law instead. "Hope everything's fine. Don't worry too much about the pension. We needed it." Those words burned hotter than anything my son had said. The entitlement in them made something sharp flare through my chest. I exhaled slowly, a trembling hum escaping me. So she knew. She had known all along. Maybe she was even the one who encouraged it. I set the phone down and steadied myself with a deep breath. This wasn't only betrayal, it was coordination, a decision made behind my back, between the two people who should have respected me most. And yet, beneath the ache, another emotion stirred, a rising certainty, a slow, powerful clarity. They thought they had taken everything from me. They thought I had nothing left. But the truth was already shifting, already turning in my favor. And they didn't know it. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. And the startling truth is, I didn't want to. Some pains don't quiet down in the dark, they grow louder. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that security footage of my boy taking what wasn't his. My husband's handwritten note hovered in my mind like a lantern flickering in a storm. And that message from my daughter-in-law kept ringing in my ears. We needed it. Lord have mercy, the audacity of it made my jaw tighten every time I thought about it. By sunrise, I could feel a strange fire warming inside me. Not anger exactly, but something steadier, something like dignity standing up from the floor after being pushed down. When the first bit of morning light slipped through my curtains, I exhaled a soft sigh that trembled with exhaustion. My bones felt heavy, but my spirit was alert. Sharp, awake, humming quietly like a wire pulled tight. I got up, made myself a cup of tea, and sat at the kitchen table staring at the steam. The house was silent except for the faint ticking of the old wall clock. Each click felt like a reminder. Time had moved on, and I had to move with it. As I wrapped my hands around the warm cup, a memory drifted into my mind. An old one. Back when my husband and I were still figuring out how to build a life from almost nothing, I remembered him saying, "Baby, one day you're going to be the strongest one out of all of us." I see it in you. I smiled softly, a shaky little breath leaving me. Maybe he had seen this moment long before I lived it. The tea soothed my throat, but not the ache in my heart. I needed answers, details. Proof. I needed to understand exactly how far my child had gone, so I picked up the phone and dialed the number for the bank. My fingers felt warm, almost buzzing, as I waited for the call to connect. When the manager answered, I introduced myself, trying hard to keep my voice steady, though a faint tremor slid through me like a tiny crack in glass. "Mom," he said gently, "I figured you might call again today. Whatever you need, I'll do my best." His soft tone made something inside me loosen a little. "I need to know everything," I whispered. Emotions scraped my throat, but I held myself tall. Every transaction, every signature, every change made to my account. There was a brief pause. Then he replied, "Come in whenever you're ready. I'll have everything prepared." After hanging up, I leaned back in my chair with a long exhale, the sound blending with a quiet hum rising from my chest. Yes. Today, the truth was coming out. Completely. I dressed slowly, deliberately, a light blouse, a soft cardigan, shoes that made me feel steady on my feet. As I looked at myself in the mirror, I noticed something new in my eyes. A glimmer, a firmness, a strength that steadied me more than any handrail could. When I stepped outside, the air felt cooler than expected, brushing against my cheeks like a reminder to stay calm. A tiny "ah" slipped out of me before I even realized it. Half breath, half weary feeling. I walked down the porch steps, my grip tightening on my handbag, and headed toward the bus stop. The ride to the bank felt longer than yesterday. Every street we passed seemed to echo with pieces of my history. The grocery store where I used to buy treats for my children, the park we once visited on Sunday afternoons, the little bakery where I'd grab donuts after church. Each place felt like a reminder of who I had been to my son and who he had chosen to become. When I reached the bank, the manager greeted me in the lobby. "Right this way," he said softly. His expression held something like concern, but also respect, as if he could see the weight I carried. Inside his office, he placed another folder on the desk. This one was thicker than the last. "Everything you asked for is here," he said. My breath wavered. I sat down slowly, my hands already warming at the sight of the papers. As I opened the folder, the first pages showed line after line of withdrawals I never made. Large sums, frequent, some labelled as transfers, others buried under vague descriptions. My throat tightened as I traced each entry with my fingertip. I whispered a low, shaky under my breath, unable to hold the shock entirely in. Then came the signatures. My son's handwriting, slanted and rushed, repeated over and over, nearly identical each time, and next to them, forged copies of my signature, sloppy imitations, not even close to how I signed my name. A shuddered exhale slipped through me. My chest rose and fell slowly as a wave of heat rolled through my body. This wasn't just carelessness, this was intentional. Prepared. Executed behind my back. I swallowed hard and turned the next page. That's when I saw the receipts, luxury handbags, spa packages, expensive dinners, airline tickets, jewelry orders, none of which belonged to me. A faint, pained laugh puffed out of me, the kind that comes from disbelief more than humor. My daughter-in-law had been living large with my old-age security. I pressed my palm against my forehead, breathing slowly through the sting that climbed my throat. "Oh, sweetheart," the manager whispered, his voice gentle. "You didn't deserve this." His empathy nearly broke me. A soft, stuttering hum slipped out as I blinked away tears. I turned the final tab in the folder, the one labelled Business Accounts. Inside were documents tied directly to my husband's letter, legal terms, ownership rights, control privileges, restrictions, and, most surprising of all, a note stating that any misuse of my financial assets automatically transferred oversight of my son's business finances to me. It felt like the air in the room shifted. A slow, spreading warmth moved through my chest, not painful this time, empowering. My husband had protected me in a way I never expected. Quietly, thoughtfully, strategically. I traced his signature with my thumb, whispering a soft breath that trembled like gratitude caught in my throat. "Thank you," I murmured, voice barely there. The manager folded his hands. "You have more power here than you realize," he said. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I believed him. I closed the folder gently, holding it against my chest for a moment. My heart thumped slowly, deliberately, like it was reclaiming its rhythm. I stood from the chair with a steadiness I didn't feel yesterday. "It's time for me to go home," I said quietly. He nodded, offering me a respectful smile. "And when you're ready to take the next step, come back. I'll help you." Outside, the afternoon sun wrapped me in a warmth that made my eyes prickle. I inhaled deeply, letting the air fill me with something bright, something firm. My son thought he had taken everything from me, but the truth was shifting fast, and I was no longer the quiet, wounded woman he assumed I'd stay. Not anymore. A sharp crack echoed through the hallway before I even reached the front door. It wasn't thunder, it wasn't a falling pan, it was something in me, snapping, splitting, letting out a sound I had held in for far too long. I leaned on the wall for a second, letting a trembling breath slip out. The house felt heavier than usual, like the walls themselves knew what had been taken from me. My palms were damp, and there was a faint sting at the back of my eyes, but I refused to let a single tear fall. Not tonight. Not after what I'd learned at the bank. The moment I stepped inside, the kitchen lights flicked on. My daughter-in-law stood there with one eyebrow arched, holding a wine glass like it was part of her hand. She sighed loud enough for the whole neighborhood to hear. "Well," she said, swirling the drink, "you look stressed." I didn't answer. I set my purse down on the counter. The zipper rattled like a warning. She took a slow sip, then smirked. "Let me guess. You went digging again." My throat tightened. I had questions. "You always have questions," she muttered, rolling her eyes. "You need to relax. You overthink everything, and it's exhausting." A small laugh slipped out of me. Bitter, humorless. "Is that what he told you?" She paused. Her fingers froze on the glass stem. "He didn't have to." She brushed past me to grab something from the fridge, mumbling, "It's obvious. You can't just let him handle things like a normal person." Normal. 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 The word stung like salt in an old wound. I watched her move around my kitchen, like she owned every square inch. She wasn't subtle, never had been. She made sure I knew exactly how she felt about me living under the same roof. The way she slammed cabinet doors, the dramatic sighs, the little whispery snickers when she thought I wasn't listening. She shut the fridge with a thud. "Whatever the bank told you, I'm sure it's not a big deal." The air inside me dropped a few degrees. My voice stayed soft. It was a big deal. I walked past her and pulled out a chair at the table. My fingers brushed its wooden edge, grounding myself. My heart was beating too fast, almost buzzing under my skin. "I know what happened," I said quietly. "All of it." Her jaw tightened. "You don't know anything. There it was." The crack in her perfect little mask. "I know about the withdrawals," I continued. "The transfers, the signature they used, and the footage." She stepped closer, her heels clicking on the tile. "You need to calm down before you start throwing accusations." I gave a soft, hollow laugh. "Oh, honey, I don't throw, I confirm." Something flickered in her eyes, a tremor of panic, quickly smothered. "You think you figured something out? You always misunderstand things," she snapped. "You make everything dramatic. You twist things into these little emotional stories." "Stories?" My voice rose, "just a fraction. This isn't a story," she scoffed. "Then what is it?" I leaned back in the chair. "It's theft." For the first time since I'd walked in, she stopped moving completely. Even the air around her stilled. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed, and the glass rocked slightly in her hand. "That's a big word," she whispered. "It matches the crime." Her lips parted like she wanted to shout, but a small sound slipped out instead, almost a choked gasp. She set the wine glass down, the base clinking sharply against the counter. "You don't understand," she said quickly. "We needed it. You needed my pension." Her panic flared into anger. "You weren't using it. You just sit around all day." I stood so fast my chair squeaked across the floor. That alone made her flinch. My voice was low, steady, too calm for her comfort. "I earned that money, every cent, every tired morning, every aching shift. That was supposed to be my peace in old age, not your shopping fund." Her cheeks reddened. "You're twisting this. I'm not twisting anything." For the first time she seemed small, shrinking, like the lights had dimmed only for her. She opened her mouth again, but footsteps sounded from the hallway. My son walked in, rubbing his eyes, clearly irritated. "What's with all the noise?" He froze when he saw our faces. My heart gave a slow, painful thump. "We need to talk." He looked at her first, not me. Always her. Then he sighed, dragging a hand over his face. "Mom, please don't start again. Start again." As if I was the problem, as if he wasn't the one who'd betrayed me, I swallowed down the sting rising in my chest. "You told me my pension was gone." "It is," he said quickly, "and it's not something you need to stress about." I exhaled a shaky breath. But it wasn't gone when you said that. You just moved it. He blinked, stunned that I knew. Her head snapped toward him. You told her? No, he muttered. She must have gone to the bank. The panic on their faces told me everything I needed to know. No explanations, no excuses, just fear, the fear of being exposed. I stepped toward him slowly. You lied to me, repeatedly. It wasn't like that, he whispered. Then what was it like? He couldn't answer. He just stared at the floor. The silence stretched out, tightening around all three of us. When I finally spoke again, my voice trembled. Not with weakness, but with something rising inside me, steady and unshakable. I know everything, I said. But you don't know what I know yet. They exchanged a quick, nervous look. And for the first time since all this began, I saw something shift. Not in them, in me. Something steady, something ready. I walked past both of them without another word, and the quiet gasp she let out behind me almost sounded like fear. This wasn't the end, not even close. This was the moment the ground beneath them finally began to move. A storm was already brewing inside me when the front door clicked shut behind my son and his wife, but the moment their voices drifted away down the hallway, something inside my chest snapped open like a window hit by wind. I wasn't angry, not the loud type anyway. It was the still anger, the one that sits low, steady, almost too quiet. The kind that makes a woman finally stand up straight after bending for far too long. I walked into the living room because my legs needed space. The lamp cast a soft yellow glow on the old carpet, and the hum of the refrigerator felt louder than it ever had before. My breath steadied. My hands settled against the arm of the couch. For a moment, I just listened to the house breathe. Then came a whisper inside me. How did I get here? It wasn't a dramatic question. It was the kind someone asks when they're staring at the life they built, the sacrifices they made, and realizing someone else has been quietly chiseling pieces away. I sat down slowly, letting out a trembling exhale, half-tired sigh, half-shaky little, "Oh, Lord," slipping through my lips. It wasn't sorrow. It was relief. And realization, because now I wasn't just confused, I wasn't just hurt, I had proof, and proof changes a woman. A soft knock tapped the doorframe. "Ma?" my son called, his tone softer than usual, too soft, almost syrupy. He stepped inside, pretending to be calm, but the way his fingers twitched betrayed him. He picked at the hem of his sleeve, a habit from childhood he thought I'd forgotten. I hadn't. I straightened. "What is it?" He swallowed hard. "Look, I think things got out of hand back there. Maybe we should all cool off." I nodded slowly. "Maybe." Relief flashed in his eyes, but it died when I added, "But we're not done." The room thickened. His shoulders slumped a little. "Ma, please," he said, rubbing the side of his face. "It's been a rough week. Let's talk tomorrow. Tomorrow won't change the truth." His eyes darted toward the hallway where his wife had retreated minutes earlier. I could almost hear her urging him to come fix it, smooth it over, keep me quiet. He sat down across from me, leaning forward like he used to when he'd come home from school guilty about something. "It wasn't supposed to hurt you." A soft laugh escaped me. Not mocking, not cruel, just one of those hollow chuckles that come out when the truth is too heavy to swallow. "But it did." He lowered his head. "We needed money. Things have been tight." "And you couldn't tell me?" I whispered. "You couldn't sit across from me, look me in the eyes and say you were struggling?" He blinked hard. She said you'd overreact, that maybe you'd take it the wrong way." "She said?" My voice flattened. Just like that, I felt it again. Oh, that cold little twist low in my ribs. Not shock, not even heartbreak. Just that quiet, familiar disappointment only a parent can feel. I leaned back, letting my fingers trace the seam of the cushion. "You didn't think to ask your own mother?" His jaw tightened. "I didn't want you to feel obligated." I snorted out a tiny, almost breathy "ah" sound. "You didn't want me to feel obligated, but you felt fine taking everything without a word?" He shut his eyes at that. Then he whispered something so faint I barely caught it. It was already gone by the time we realized how deep we were. My pulse thumped once like a warning drumbeat. Gone? Where? His throat tightened. Bills. Debt. Things. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. Silence can be its own kind of spotlight. He pressed his palms together, staring at them. Ma, I didn't know what else to do. A warmth rose in my eyes. Not tears, but that kind of slow burn you feel when the truth slams into you all at once. You ask, I said gently. You talk to me. You tell me. Because I raised you better than secrecy. He shuddered a breath, whispering, I'm sorry, but apologies don't glue back broken trust. I stood, and the soft scrape of my slippers on the floor made him flinch. Not from fear, from knowing something had shifted in me. I walked toward the small cabinet near the window. Inside it was a folder I hadn't opened yet, the one the bank manager had given me, the one holding the last piece of the puzzle, a piece I hadn't shown them. Yet. I didn't take it out. Not tonight. The moment wasn't right. Instead, I kept my hand on the cabinet door and looked back at him. Do you know what hurt most? I asked quietly. He looked up with damp eyes. What? That you let her convince you I'd never understand. My voice cracked, but only a breath, like a soft little whimper catching itself before it became a tear. After everything we lived through, you believed her over me. His shoulders dropped as if the weight finally landed on him. Ma, I didn't think about it like that. No, I said softly, you didn't think about me at all. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out, not a single excuse. A hush fell over the room. Only the ticking clock dared to move. After a moment, I let out a warm, almost humming breath. Not forgiveness, resolve. We'll talk more tomorrow. He nodded slowly, sadness flickering in his eyes. Okay. As he walked away, I felt something steady rise inside me, a calm fire, slow and sure. Not revenge, not rage, just readiness, because tomorrow wasn't a conversation. It was the beginning of the shift. The moment I finally stepped into the power I didn't know I still had. A sharp whisper cut through the early morning stillness before I even opened my eyes. The kind of whisper that tells you something is wrong before your mind fully wakes. I sat up slowly, rubbing my palms together to steady myself. Dawn light spilled into my room, soft and blue, the kind that makes everything look honest. My chest rose and fell with a long exhale, and a faint little slipped out, half sigh, half bracing breath. I felt older and stronger at the same time. Today wasn't just another day, today was reckoning. I swung my legs over the bed and let my feet sink into the warm rug. The house was too quiet, almost holding its breath. Somewhere down the hallway, I could hear soft shuffling, someone trying not to be heard. They had no idea I already knew more than I pretended to. When I stepped into the hallway, a faint scent of coffee drifted toward me. My son was sitting in the kitchen staring into a cup like it held all the answers he wanted to avoid. He looked up quickly when he heard me, his eyes puffy, his shoulders slumped. "Morning, Ma," he murmured. I nodded, my expression calm, almost gentle. Morning. He watched me carefully, like he expected me to snap or lecture or cry. But I didn't give him that. I moved slowly, deliberately, taking a seat across from him. A soft whistle of breath slipped through my lips, the sound you make when your heart isn't angry anymore, just awake. He swallowed hard. I didn't sleep much. I figured, I said quietly. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His fingers tapped the mug, nerves buzzing through each movement. "Is she up?" I asked. He hesitated. "No, she stayed in the guest room last night." Ah. There it was, guilt creating distance. I leaned back slightly. "So you're hiding from each other now?" He winced. "It's not like that." I hummed, letting him sit with the discomfort. For a moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator. The house felt small, every emotion sitting out in the open where neither of us could pretend anymore. Finally, he spoke. "Ma, I didn't mean for things to get this bad." "They didn't get this bad overnight," I replied. "They got this bad through choices." He looked down again, shoulders folding inward. "I know! A small tremble fluttered in my chest, not weakness but the ache of truth settling. I took a slow breath before continuing. I raised you to stand up when you were wrong, not to hide. His jaw clenched. I'm trying. I shook my head gently. Trying would have meant telling me before you touched a single dollar. He flinched at the word dollar. Silence draped over us again, heavier this time. I reached into my sweater pocket and pulled out the folded paper the bank manager had given me yesterday, not the folder, just the little sheet with the timestamp and the scribbled initials. His eyes widened. Ma, what is that? I didn't hand it over. I let it rest between my fingers, letting the weight of it speak. This, I said calmly, is a reminder that I'm not as blind as you think. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. You saw the footage? I nodded once, his palms pressed against the table like he needed the wood to hold him up. I didn't think you'd ever find out. That part is obvious. He looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. A soft, almost broken, "Oh," came from me. Not pity, but realization. You weren't just afraid of disappointing me, you were afraid of her reaction. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. I saw the answer in the slump of his shoulders. I leaned forward. You let her steer your life like a ship in a storm, and now look where you both landed, he whispered. I thought I was helping her. You weren't helping her, I said, voice steady as stone. You were feeding a problem. He squeezed his eyes shut, inhaling sharply. I know, Ma, I know. I softened. Not my boundaries, not my expectations, just the space between us. You're still my child, I whispered, even when you're wrong. His chin trembled as he looked up. But being my child doesn't mean you get to take from me without asking. I didn't survive all these years to be treated like an open wallet. He nodded slowly, shame burning across his expression. What do you want me to do? He finally asked, voice barely above a murmur. For the first time, I smiled. Not warm, not cold, just knowing. You'll do what you should have done from the beginning. Which is, face the truth. His brows knit together. Ma, you and I are going to the bank today. His face went pale. Today? Yes, I said plainly, not raising my tone. Bring your honesty. He rubbed his forehead. She won't like that. That's unfortunate, I replied, but she's not the one who owes me answers. He blew a shaky breath through his teeth. The fear was unmistakable, not of me, but of the consequences he'd been trying desperately to avoid. I rose from the chair, letting out a quiet, humming breath, the kind that vibrates with certainty. Be ready in an hour. As I walked toward my room, he called out softly, Ma, will you ever forgive me? I paused in the doorway but didn't turn around. Forgiveness wasn't a word you hand out like loose change. It was a door that stayed locked until someone repaired the hinges themselves. You'll earn it, I whispered. The house fell silent, but inside me something steadied, something lifted. Something prepared itself for whatever the bank's folder would bring next. Because today wasn't just about answers. Today was about reclaiming what was mine. Not just the money, but the dignity they thought they could spend behind my back. I was standing right there in the middle of my own kitchen, my hands still damp from washing dishes, when the phone lit up with a message that made my stomach twist like somebody had wrung it out. It was a text from Louise, short, sharp and cold enough to feel like winter wind blowing straight through me. Mom, we're moving forward with the plan. It's better if you're not involved. My heart dropped so hard I had to grab the counter just to stay upright. There it was. Confirmation. The betrayal I'd been feeling around the edges like a draft coming from under a door was now standing bold and bare right in front of me. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stared at that screen until the letters blurred. My own daughter, my own child, the same girl who used to cry for me at night and tuck her small hand in mine, now locking me out of my own life plan. And not just any plan. The plan about my home, my money, my future. The things her father and I broke our backs to build. I could feel the heat climbing up my chest. That fierce, trembling heat that comes when hurt meets disbelief. My voice cracked out of me before I even knew it was speaking. Lord, what on earth did I raise? I wiped my hands on the towel hanging from the oven handle. My fingers were trembling, not from age, I'll tell you that right now, but from pure, heavy emotion, the kind that hits you square in the chest and makes it hard to hold yourself up. For a minute, I thought about calling her. But something deep inside me whispered, not yet, not until I was calm, not until I had the whole picture. So instead, I went outside, sat on my porch swing, and let the cool air wrap around me. The sky was turning that late, evening orange, soft and warm, the kind that always made me feel grounded. But tonight, even the sunset couldn't soften the blow. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it's quiet, a text message, a tone, a decision made without you. Sometimes it's dressed up as helping, even when it's nothing but taking control. And this? This felt like somebody had grabbed the steering wheel of my life while I was still driving. I leaned back and let the swing rock. I didn't cry, not yet. But I could feel something gathering behind my ribs, something heavy, something old. That's when another message came through. We'll explain later. Just trust us. Just trust us. It's funny how the people who break your trust always want to borrow some more of it. I set my phone down beside me. I wasn't going to answer. I needed air. I needed clarity. And honestly, I needed to not cuss my own daughter out, because Lord knows I was halfway there. A squirrel ran across the yard, chattering like it owned the whole place. That little creature didn't know anything about human mess, human hurt, human pride. It just kept going, busy with its business. Maybe that's what I needed to do too, keep going. But first, I needed answers. I needed to know what the plan meant. I needed to know what she was hiding, because Louise never told me half of what she was thinking. She always held things close, tucked her intentions behind that polite smile of hers. And now it seemed she'd tucked away my future too. Later that night, when the house was quiet and the world felt smaller, I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea. I stared at that steam like it could tell me what to do. Memories kept rising up, messy ones, old ones, sweet ones, painful ones. Louise as a baby, laying on my chest. Louise at 6, running across the yard with her pigtails flying. Louise at 16, slamming the door and yelling, "You don't understand me, Mom!" And Louise last month, sitting across this same table, smiling that careful smile when she said, "Mom, you should think about downsizing. It'd be easier for you." That was the first breadcrumb. This message was the whole loaf. I pressed my palms against the table and closed my eyes. Lord, help me stay steady. And steady I would be, but I wasn't going to be silent. The next morning, I called my nephew, James. Now, James ain't the type to run his mouth, and that's exactly what I needed. He was level-headed, sharp with numbers, and most importantly, loyal. "Hey, Auntie," he said, "you sound serious." Quietly. There was a pause. "What's wrong? My daughter's up to something, and I need the truth before I react." James didn't even hesitate. "Say no more, I'll check. See, James works in real estate, knows contracts, property transfers, all that technical mess that sounds like a foreign language to me, and if anybody could sniff out something crooked, it was him." I handed him the pieces I had. That vague conversation, that cold message, and he got to work. I spent the next few hours cleaning the house just to keep myself busy. I scrubbed the counters until the shine damn near blinded me. I folded laundry like it insulted me. I wiped down picture frames I didn't even know I still had. Because when your heart is hurting, sometimes your hands need something to do. Just when I was rearranging the spices, for the 5th time, my phone rang. James. I swallowed hard and answered. "Tell me, Auntie." His voice was slow, cautious. "I think you better sit down." My knees nearly gave out. I grabbed the back of the chair and dropped into it. "James, what happened?" He exhaled. "Your daughter's been in talks with a buyer." The world went silent. "A buyer?" My voice cracked. "A buyer for what?" "For your house," he said softly. My heart didn't just sink, it crashed, like a stone thrown into a deep lake. "They already started paperwork," he continued. "Looks like she's trying to get power of attorney too." "Power of attorney? Over me? Over my life? Over my life? Over my choices?" without my knowledge, without my permission, without my consent. I felt something tear inside me, not physical, something deeper, something sacred. Lord have mercy, I whispered. James spoke gently. Auntie, do you want me to step in? I can call the agent. No. My voice came out steady, stronger than I felt. This is my fight. My daughter wants a battle. Well, she's about to meet the part of me she forgot. That night, I didn't sleep, not because I was scared, but because betrayal wakes something in you, something sharp, something ancient. I wrote notes, I gathered documents, I looked through old files, I made calls to people who owed me favors, and believe me, after living a long life, you collect enough of those to build a safety net. By dawn, I was ready. Not angry, not panicked, ready. When Louise pulled into my driveway that afternoon, her car doors slamming like she owned the place, I stood at the porch railing, straight-backed and steady. She looked surprised to see me standing outside. "Mom," she said, "we need to talk." "Yes," I replied, my voice low but firm. "Yes, baby girl, we do." Her eyes flickered. For a moment, like she felt the shift in the wind, because she wasn't walking up on the mama who overlooked, forgave too fast, or stayed quiet to keep peace. She was walking up on the woman who built this house with her own 2 hands and wasn't about to let anybody take it, not even her own child. And I swear, the minute her foot hit that first porch step, I felt the beginning of a power shift. She just didn't know yet. But she was about to. I didn't expect the night to feel so long. After everything that happened earlier, the confrontation, the folder, the truth spilling out like broken glass, I thought I'd sleep heavy. But no. I found myself staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the soft creaks my old house made when it settled, like it was breathing right along with me. Sometimes silence feels louder than any argument. I kept replaying my son's face in my mind, the way his jaw clenched when he realized I knew what he'd been doing. That mix of guilt, anger, and something else I still can't name. And honestly, it stung worse than anything he ever said. Not because he'd been caught, but because he never thought I'd see through him. As if I were too fragile, too trusting, too old to understand the world I'd lived in longer than he's been alive. I rubbed my hands together, trying to warm them. They felt cold all the way to the bones. "Lord, give me strength," I murmured, letting the words drift into the dim room. The morning came with a pale light slipping through my curtains. I dragged myself up, feeling the heaviness of a truth that had no intention of letting go. And as soon as I stepped into the kitchen, the phone buzzed. It was him. The moment I saw his name, my breath hitched. Something inside me whispered, "Brace yourself, girl. It's strange, isn't it? How the people you love the most can make your heart tremble with a single vibration of a phone." "Mom," he said when I answered, his voice tight, "we need to talk." A tiny laugh pushed out of me, humorless and low. "We already did, sweetheart." "No," he insisted. "Not like that." There was a pause, one of those heavy ones where you both feel the cliff underneath your feet and know one wrong word might make you fall straight through. "I didn't mean for things to get out of control," he said. I leaned against the counter, tracing my thumb across the edge like I was grounding myself. "But they did." He sighed, long and frustrated, like he was the one suffering. "Can we just meet? Please, just hear me out." "Hear you out?" I echoed softly. "Baby, I've been hearing you out for years." A moment of silence followed. I could almost picture him standing somewhere with his head down, hands shoved in his pockets. "Please, Mom," he whispered. That little tremble in his voice, God, it tugged at me. The part of me that raised him, nursed his fevers, folded his shirts, prayed for him when he didn't even know I was praying. But another part of me, the bruised, tired part, stepped forward too. "Okay," I said, "the cafe near the clinic." 10 minutes? I hesitated before answering. "All right. Where?" "I'll be there." When I arrived, the place smelled like roasted coffee and cinnamon, warm and calming. He was already seated by the window, tapping his leg, fidgeting like a teenager. The moment he saw me, he stood up quick, like he wasn't sure how to greet me, hug or handshake or nothing at all. We settled across from each other. He looked worn out, like he hadn't slept either. "I messed up," he blurted out. I raised an eyebrow. "Be specific." His eyes flicked down. "The pension, the account transfers, everything." "Why?" He dragged a hand across his face and let out a shaky huff. "Things got hard, Mom. Money, stress, the business. I didn't know how to tell you, and He stopped, swallowing. "He?" I leaned forward. "She? What?" "She said we could pay it back later. That it was temporary. That you wouldn't notice." I closed my eyes, feeling my heartbeat thud in my throat. "You really believe that?" He didn't answer. A faint sniffle slipped out of him, one he tried to hide by turning his face away. For a second, I saw my little boy, the one who used to cling to my leg whenever thunder cracked outside. But I couldn't let softness blur the truth. "You took advantage of me," I said gently, not raising my voice. "You didn't ask. You didn't think. You just acted like my whole life was sitting there for you to rearrange." He flinched. "And you know what hurts," I continued. "Not the money, not even the lies. It's that you didn't think I deserved respect." "Mom, please." A faint shiver ran through me, one of those emotional tremors you can't control. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "I wanted to help you if you needed help. All you ever had to do was tell me." He looked down at his hands again like he was studying them for answers. "I'm sorry," he murmured. "I really am." The apology floated between us, fragile and trembling. "But hearing you doesn't erase what happened." He swallowed hard. "So, what now?" I reached into my bag and placed a folded document on the table, sliding it toward him. His name was printed at the top. He froze. "What's this?" "Proof," I said softly. "Your father left everything tied to certain conditions. Conditions you triggered the moment you used my funds without my permission." He blinked rapidly, confusion turning into dawning realization. "Mom, you didn't. I did." He unfolded the paper with shaking hands. His eyes scanned the lines. His breath stuttered. "That's not fair," he whispered. "Sweetheart, fairness left when you treated me like I wouldn't notice my own sacrifices disappearing." His throat bobbed. "Mom, please, don't do this. I'm not doing anything," I said quietly. "Your father already did." He bit his lip hard, a broken, slipping from him. His shoulders slumped like the truth had just knocked the air right out of him. I reached across the table, resting my fingers lightly near his, not touching but close enough. "I'm not trying to destroy you," I said. "I'm trying to wake you up." He let out a trembling sigh, eyes fixed on the table. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," I murmured. "Just start choosing better." As I stood to leave, my chest tightened. Part sorrow, part release. Walking away felt like stepping through a doorway into a new chapter I didn't ask for but needed. Behind me, I heard him whisper my name, barely audible, thin and cracked. But I kept walking. I thought leaving that cafe would give me some peace, but the moment the door closed behind me, a strange mix of relief and ache spread through my chest. The cool air outside brushed against my face, and for a moment, I just stood there, letting it steady me. Funny how fresh air can feel like a hug when you're trying not to crumble. My hands trembled slightly as I reached for my keys. It wasn't fear. No, it was a storm of emotions swirling inside me, and I was trying to keep them from spilling over. I whispered a soft, under my breath, the kind you let out when you're holding back tears and strength at the same time. Driving home felt unreal. Every red light gave me another memory, holding my boy when he was feverish, packing lunches, cheering at his school concerts, staying up during storms just to make sure he felt safe. And now look at us, sitting across from each other like strangers trying to untangle a mess we never should have been tangled in. When I pulled into my driveway, the house looked different somehow, quieter, heavier, like it had been waiting for the truth to settle inside its walls. I stepped inside and set my bag down, breathing slow to keep my heart from racing. Then the phone rang again. I stared at it for a moment, a dry laugh slipping out. "Lord, give me a second to breathe," I muttered. It wasn't him this time. It was the bank. My stomach tightened, not with dread, but with anticipation. I answered carefully, "This is Nell speaking." "Mom," the manager said gently, "some additional documentation just came in regarding your accounts. There are details you'll want to see." Something fluttered in my chest, part curiosity, part warning. "I can come now," I told him, grabbing my keys again. The drive back felt faster, like the world was pushing me forward whether I wanted to move or not. When I entered the bank, the manager recognized me instantly and motioned toward his office. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. His voice had that tone, polite but weighted, like he was preparing to hand me something that might shake me again. I sat down slowly, bracing myself. He opened a drawer, pulled out a thicker folder this time, and placed it gently in front of me. These were processed years ago but never disclosed. We didn't know they were relevant until the system cross-referenced your recent inquiry. And there it was, another layer. "Go on," I encouraged, nodding, even though my throat tightened. He flicked open the folder. Inside were handwritten letters, scanned documents, and an envelope sealed with a stamp I recognized instantly. My breath hitched. My husband's handwriting. "Oh!" The sound slipped out of me, soft and shaky. The manager stepped back respectfully, giving me space as I lifted the top letter. The moment my fingers touched the paper, memories surged. His laugh, his steady voice, the way he held my hand like it was something precious. I unfolded the letter. "If you're reading this, my love, it means our boy is struggling." My fingers went still. "I know how deeply you love him. I know how much you'd give for him without thinking twice. That's why I've put safeguards in place to protect you from giving so much that you forget to save something for yourself." I inhaled sharply, fighting the wave of warmth and sadness washing over me. "Oh, honey," I whispered. The letter continued, "If he ever loses his way, remind him gently. But do not let him take the foundation we built. You deserve security. You deserve peace." A deep, trembling exhale escaped me. My eyes glistened, and I blinked rapidly, a soft awe catching in my throat. The manager placed a tissue box nearby without saying a word. I gently set the letter aside and pulled out the next document. A notarized paper signed by my husband granting me authority over several business-linked accounts my son never told me existed. Another envelope held a small key. "What's this for?" I asked quietly. "A lockbox," the manager replied. "Your husband arranged it before he passed." A shiver passed through me. "Where is it?" He handed me a slip. "Downstairs in the vault." My heart thumped softly, steady, slow, heavy. As the heavy door opened, a chill greeted us, the kind that makes you draw in a sharp little breath. The manager led me to a small box near the far end. "Take your time," he said. I inserted the key, my hands trembling slightly, and lifted the lid. Inside were three things: a small velvet pouch, a folded note, and a USB drive. A delicate gold pendant rested inside, my husband's mother's pendant, the one he always said he'd pass to me when the time was right. Tears welled in my eyes, warm and immediate. I picked it up, feeling its weight, quiet, meaningful, familiar. Then I unfolded the note. "This is for the day you need strength, the day you forget how powerful you are, the day someone tries to dim the light I fell in love with." A quiet "oh" slipped out of me. "Don't let anyone, even our son, use your heart against you." That line made my breath tremble. I set the note down and looked at the USB drive. "What's on it?" The manager cleared his throat. "Financial audits, signatures, proof of every unauthorized transaction made from your accounts." A slow, steady heat filled my chest, not anger, something firmer, something that stood tall inside me. "So he knew," I whispered. "My husband, he knew this might happen." The manager placed a gentle hand on the table, not touching me but offering presence. "He knew you deserved protection." I closed the box slowly, pressing my palm against the cool metal surface. "He always did have a way of seeing things ahead of time," I murmured, a small, bittersweet chuckle slipping out. Standing up felt like stepping into a different version of myself, one stitched together with old love and new resolve. As I left the bank with the folder tucked under my arm, I felt something shift inside me. The hurt was still there, sure, but now it sat beside something stronger, something steadier. I wasn't just reacting anymore, I was preparing. And this time, I wasn't walking into the storm alone. The ride home from the bank felt different this time. Not lighter, but clearer, like someone had wiped a foggy window I didn't realize I'd been looking through for years. I kept one hand on the wheel and the other resting on that folder, feeling the edges beneath my fingertips as if it were a heartbeat. My husband's voice echoed softly in my mind, not in words but in that warm way he used to steady me without even trying. When I pulled into my driveway, the sun had dipped low, painting the sky in those soft peach colors that always made me sigh in quiet appreciation. I sat there for a moment, letting the engine tick itself cool, my breath slow and deep. "Thank you," I whispered to no one and everyone, my husband, God, maybe even myself. Inside the house, the stillness greeted me again, but this time it didn't feel empty. It felt expectant, like a story waiting for its next chapter. I placed the folder on my kitchen table and made myself a cup of tea, needing something warm to hold on to. When the steam brushed my face, a gentle slicked out of me, grounding me right where I stood. I sank into my chair and opened the folder again. The pendant glimmered faintly under the kitchen light, and I reached out, brushing my thumb across its smooth surface. "You always knew me," I murmured, feeling a pinch of ache behind my ribs. The letter, the documents, the truth, they all formed a weight I didn't ask for, but one I finally felt strong enough to carry. And just as that strength settled in, my phone buzzed again. I stared at it, a soft exhale leaving me. "Let me guess," I said under my breath. But it wasn't him, it was his wife. That surprised a quiet out of me. I let it ring twice before answering, bracing my voice. "Hello?" Her tone was sharp from the start. "I need to know what you did." I blinked slowly. "Pardon?" "You talked to him," she snapped. "He came home acting like the world was ending. You're making things difficult." I leaned back in my chair, letting the warmth of my tea flow through my hands. "Sweetheart," I said gently, "I didn't make anything. I simply uncovered what was already there." "You're being dramatic," she spat. "It was temporary." "We were going to fix it." My mouth parted, a breathy, startled hum escaping me. "Fix it by hiding it, by letting me wonder where my own savings went." She scoffed. "You're retired. You don't need that much money." Something inside me snapped, not loudly, not violently, but quietly and firmly, the way a door closes when you finally had enough. "That's not for you to decide," I said, my voice low and steady. And it never was. A pause stretched through the line. I could almost hear her swallowing the truth she didn't want. Then she tried again, softer this time. "Look, we're under pressure. You don't understand what we're dealing with." "I understand more than you think," I replied. "But understanding doesn't mean surrendering." Another pause, longer, heavier. She exhaled sharply. "If you take control of those accounts, you'll ruin us." I felt a shiver run through me. Not fear, just the chill of knowing someone was finally telling the truth. "Your husband's actions already took us to the edge," I said quietly. "I'm simply stepping back from it." She tried to speak again, but I didn't give her the chance. "You both made choices," I continued. "Choices have consequences, and I have a right to protect what's mine." Her voice broke in frustration. "This is unbelievable." "I'm not trying to destroy you," I said softly, "but I won't let you destroy me either." I ended the call before she could twist another word into something sharp. The moment the line clicked, my body released a breath I didn't realize I was holding. A little tremor ran through my fingers, and I set the phone down gently, letting out a soft "ah" that felt like the echo of a closing chapter. I picked up my tea again, holding it between my palms, letting the warmth seep into me. It was quiet, so quiet I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a car passing on the street. And then, in the middle of that stillness, something unexpected happened. A sense of peace eased over me. Not joy, not victory, just a calm recognition that I was finally standing on solid ground. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't shrinking myself to keep the peace. I wasn't ignoring the truth to stay comfortable. I wasn't pretending not to see what was right in front of me. I was choosing myself. My husband had seen this moment coming long before I did. That thought made me smile, a soft, aching smile that warmed my face. "You old fox," I murmured, shaking my head lightly. Always thinking ahead. I fastened the chain around my neck. A warm, unexpected shiver ran through me. It sat against my skin like a promise, like a reminder, like strength made into metal. I stood up and straightened my shoulders. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt steady, grounded, like it was holding me up instead of leaning on me. I walked to the window and looked out at the quiet street. The porch light from the neighbor's house flickered softly, and a faint breeze rustled the leaves of the oak tree in the yard. "Tomorrow," I whispered to the night, "we take the next step, not out of anger, not out of fear, out of clarity." And for the first time in this whole ordeal, that felt enough. I opened that creaky back door like I was stepping into a memory I wasn't sure I wanted to revisit. The evening air met me first, cool, quiet, lying heavy with the smell of pine needles, that same scent I used to breathe in when I'd stand on that porch waiting for my babies to get home from school. Funny how a smell can snatch your heart before your thoughts even catch up. But that evening wasn't calm on the inside. My whole chest felt tight, like somebody was hammering nails in my ribs. After what I'd uncovered, after the secrets, the lies, the manipulation, I wasn't just walking into my own home, I was walking into the truth. And the truth, child, ain't never as small as people try to make it. It stretches, grows, claws its way right into the open. I stood on that porch for a second longer than a second should be. Enough to hear my breath, enough to hear the distant hum of a car passing the main road, enough to tell myself, "Nell, you've survived worse storms than this one." And Lord knows I had. But the storm inside that house was different, because this time it wasn't strangers trying to hurt me, it was family. And betrayal from your own blood hits you in places even your bones remember. I stepped inside. The hallway lights were on even though I wasn't home. That alone made my stomach twist. Shoes scattered near the rug, voices somewhere deeper in the living room, laughter. Light, casual, everyday laughter, like nothing in the world was wrong. Like they hadn't pulled the rug right out from under me the moment I turned my back. I walked forward slowly, almost too calmly for the kind of fire burning in me. When I reached that living room doorway, I paused again. My hand rested on the edge of the frame, steady still. Stillness can fool folks. Any woman who's lived through enough knows stillness is where the decision happens. Do you speak? Do you break? Do you rise? They didn't notice me at first. My daughter-in-law was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, her feet propped up like she owned the place. My son stood near the bookshelf, that easy grin he always wore when she was around, plastered on his face like a mask too tight for the truth underneath. And in the center of the coffee table, my coffee table, were papers, a stack of them, thick, neat, waiting for me. "Evening," I said, my voice low but steady enough to slice through their laughter like a clean blade. They both jumped slightly. My son turned first, his smile flickering like a faulty porch light. "Mom, we didn't know you were coming back tonight." I nodded, stepping fully into the room. I figured that out. My daughter-in-law sat up, smoothing her shirt, but her eyes didn't meet mine. They slid toward those papers instead. If guilt had a shape, child, it sat right there in her silence. I moved closer. Not fast, not slow, just with the kind of purpose a woman gets when she's done being lied to. "What's all this?" I asked, gesturing toward the stack. She opened her mouth, but my son jumped in first. "It's just some financial stuff, Mom. A few things we thought might help you." "Help me?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Her fingers started tapping against her knee. And in that moment I realized something. They weren't nervous because they were caught. They were nervous because they didn't know how much I knew. And I wasn't about to give them the easy way out. I pulled out a chair and sat down. The room felt different when I sat, like gravity shifted. Like all that foolishness they'd been planning suddenly had to answer to me. "Well," I said softly, folding my hands. Since you'll seem real invested in my future, go ahead and explain what kind of help requires lawyers, signatures, and my name printed on the top of every page. My daughter-in-law swallowed. Nell, she said cautiously, we were just trying to set things up so you'd be more comfortable. Comfortable, I repeated slowly, letting the words sit in the air. Comfortable without my own house, without my own decisions, without knowing what you've been doing behind my back? Her mouth twitched. She hadn't expected that. You saw the documents? My son asked, his voice shrinking just a little. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. A mother's silence can speak louder than any argument. He rubbed the back of his neck. We were going to tell you. We just didn't know when. I smiled, small, sharp, calm. That's interesting, I murmured. Because you sure knew when to call the attorney, and when to schedule appointments, and when to start signing papers that didn't belong to you. Their eyes widened a fraction. I'd hit home. My daughter-in-law leaned forward, her voice softening into that sugar-coated tone she used whenever she wanted something. Nell, please. We were only thinking of your well-being. You're getting older, and we thought it'd be easier if we handled things for you. Houses are a lot to manage, you know. You shouldn't have to stress. I looked at her, really looked. She thought age made me weak. But age don't weaken a woman like me. It seasons her. It sharpens her vision. It teaches her how to read people who think they're better at hiding than they are. Darling, I said gently, don't mistake my years for ignorance. Her lips tightened. You didn't do this for my comfort. You did it for convenience, yours. Silence landed in the room like a heavy book slamming shut. My son tried to speak. Mom, I held up a hand. Just one. Enough to stop him mid-sentence. I raised you better than to take shortcuts through someone else's dignity. His eyes lowered. And I loved you enough, I continued, my voice soft but firm, to let you make your own mistakes. But what you don't get to do is make decisions about my life behind closed doors. My daughter-in-law looked frustrated now, little cracks forming in her patience. So what do you want to do, Nell? She asked. Since you clearly don't trust us. I leaned back in the chair, and for the first time since walking in, I felt the power shift. It slid right back where it belonged. I want those papers off my table, I said. I want you all out of my house tonight. And I want you to remember one thing. Just because I walk quiet doesn't mean I walk blind. And from this moment on, I said, I decide what happens to me. Not you, not anyone. The room was still, too still. Like the air itself knew the chapter had changed. And child, a new chapter was exactly what was coming. I've learned over the years that revelations don't come all at once. They come in drops, little bits of truth that fall right on your spirit until finally you look down and realize you're standing in a flood. That's how it felt, walking back toward my house that evening, my mind heavy with everything I had pieced together. Every lie, every half-truth, every quiet conversation I wasn't supposed to hear it, all lined up like dominoes, and now the last one had finally tipped. The sun was slipping down behind the oak trees, painting the sky with that deep orange glow that always reminded me of my mama's peach cobbler. But the warmth of it didn't reach me. My steps felt heavier than usual, and my heart, Lord, that thing felt like it was trying to brace itself for impact. I didn't know exactly what I was going to walk into, but I knew it wasn't going to be peace. When I reached my porch, I paused, letting my hand rest on the railing. That porch had held me through so many moments. Joy, heartbreak, laughter, tears. But right then, it felt like I was asking it to hold my courage too. I breathed in deep, tasted pine and old memories, then pushed the door open. The living room lights were on. That was the first sign of trouble. I never leave lights on, not when it's just me. That's money wasted, and I didn't make it this far in life by wasting anything, not time, not love, not electricity. Voices drifted from the kitchen, low but not quiet enough. The kind of tone folks use when they think they're discussing something reasonable, even while planning something wrong. I walked slowly, steadying myself with every step. My feet knew this house like an old hymn, but my spirit felt like it was walking on unfamiliar ground. When I reached the kitchen doorway, I saw them. My son stood near the counter, shoulders hunched, arms crossed like he was bracing for a debate. My daughter-in-law sat at the table, flipping through a folder. My folder. My name was printed on every page inside, neat and bold, like a stamp on a package ready to be mailed off. She didn't even look up at first. Neither did he. So I stood there a moment, just taking it in. The papers. The signatures. The quiet confidence on her face, the tired worry on his, and the unmistakable truth that the two of them had been planning something big, something they were trying hard not to say to me directly. I finally cleared my throat. Both of them froze. My son turned first. "Mom?" "Hey, we didn't think you'd be back yet." "No," I said, "I can see that." My daughter-in-law shut the folder, pressing her palm on top of it like she was guarding treasure. "Or evidence." I pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. I didn't slam it, didn't raise my voice, didn't show the shaking in my chest. I just looked her in the eyes the way my mama taught me, steady, unblinking, and without apology. "What are you all doing?" I asked softly. She smiled, but it wasn't a real one. It was the kind you put on when you're trying to sell somebody something they don't need. "We're just organizing some things," she said. "Nothing for you to worry about." "Mm-hmm." I nodded slowly. That's funny because typically the things that involve my name require my worry. My son shifted uncomfortably. "Mom, let us explain. I'm listening." My daughter-in-law straightened in her chair, taking the lead like she always did. "We've been thinking," she began, "and we believe it's time to make some adjustments for your future, for your safety." "My safety," I repeated. "Last time I checked, I'm not the one sneaking behind family to get papers drawn up." She swallowed, glanced at my son, then looked back at me. "You live alone, Nell. This house is too much for one person. We're just trying to help you transition into something easier." "Transition," I said quietly. "Is that the word they used at the lawyer's office?" Her eyes flickered, just for a second, but I caught it. My son rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom, we didn't mean for it to look sneaky. We were going to tell you everything. We just needed the paperwork sorted first." "And what kind of paperwork," I asked, "needs to be sorted before the person it belongs to even knows about it?" Silence. Not a word. The kind of silence that tells the truth better than any confession. My daughter-in-law finally spoke, the sweetness slipping from her voice. "Look, Nell, this house is valuable. It's equity sitting still. You could be using that money to support yourself comfortably instead of pouring it into repairs and bills. We have opportunities you could benefit from if you let us help." "Let you help," I repeated, "or let you control." Her jaw tightened just a little. But again I caught it. My son whispered, "Mom, please don't make this harder." I leaned back, not angry, not yelling, just tired, bone tired. "You two made decisions about my life without me. You sat in offices with my name on papers I never touched. You planned out where I should live, how I should spend my days, what should happen to the house I built with my own two hands, and you didn't tell me, not once." My daughter-in-law tried to speak, but I held up one finger. "No," I said softly, "I'm not finished." Their eyes dropped like children being scolded. "I've lived a long life," I went on. "Long enough to know when someone is helping me versus when someone is helping themselves." My son's shoulders slumped. My daughter-in-law looked annoyed now, like I was refusing a gift. "So what do you want, Nell?" she asked. "What's your solution?" I stood, slow, calm, certain. "My solution," I said, "is simple. You're going to put those papers away. You're going to get out of my house for tonight, and tomorrow we're going to have a real conversation, one where I'm present, aware, and not being handled like a problem to be solved." I walked to the folder, slid it toward me, and tapped it once with my finger. "And one more thing," I added, "don't mistake my age for weakness. I might walk slower these days, but I don't walk blind." Neither of them spoke, neither of them moved. And that's when I knew this storm wasn't over, not even close. Morning light ain't supposed to feel cold, but that next day, it did. It crept across my floorboards like it was tiptoeing, almost afraid to touch anything after the way the night ended. I woke before the sun fully climbed up, my mind already stirring, replaying every word and every look my son and his wife gave me. Sleep had visited me only in short breaths, and each time I opened my eyes, the same truth settled right back onto my chest. Heavy, unfamiliar, sharp around the edges. I sat on the side of my bed for a long moment, rubbing my palms together, warming them, grounding myself. My house was quiet, too quiet. That kind of silence where even the clock ticking sounds like it's warning you about something. I whispered a soft, "Lord, guide me," under my breath, not as a plea but as a reminder that I wasn't walking into this day alone. By the time I stepped into the kitchen, the kettle was already on the stove, steam curling like a small prayer rising. I made myself a cup of tea, held it between my palms, and stood by the window. Outside, everything looked normal. Blue sky, the neighbor's old hound stretching in the yard, a delivery truck rolling slow down the street. But normal outside don't mean normal inside, and I felt the weight of what I had to do next pressing hard on my ribs. My phone buzzed on the counter. "My son!" A short message, "We should talk." I didn't answer right away. I let the steam warm my face, let the bitterness of the tea settle on my tongue. Talking wasn't the problem. Their intentions, that was the wound. After a few minutes, I typed a simple reply. "Come by at noon." The hours between sunrise and noon stretched thin, like fabric pulled too tight. I cleaned the house even though it didn't need it, wiped down counters, folded dish towels, dusted picture frames that didn't have a speck on them. It wasn't the cleaning that mattered, it was the movement. It kept my hands busy while my heart steadied itself. When the clock finally hit 12, I heard their car pull up. 2 doors closed, soft voices outside, footsteps approaching the porch. Then a hesitant knock. I didn't rush to open the door. I let a few seconds pass so they could feel the weight of walking into a home they had tried to manage behind my back. When I did open it, my son looked worn out, like he had aged a few years overnight. His wife, on the other hand, looked composed, controlled, like she had rehearsed a whole speech on the drive over. They stepped inside quietly. I motioned toward the living room, and they sat on opposite ends of the couch. I took my old armchair, the place where I always felt strongest. "All right," I said softly, folding my hands in my lap. "We can talk now." My son swallowed, his voice unsteady. "Mom, we weren't trying to hurt you." "I hear you," I replied. "But intention doesn't erase impact." He looked down, shame pooling in his eyes. His wife cleared her throat. "Nell, we made a mistake not telling you sooner, but the plan wasn't harmful. It was practical. You live alone. This house is too big. Your pension is complicated. We were trying to position things so you'd be secure." I tilted my head. "Secure for who?" She blinked, thrown off. "For you, of course." I murmured. "And the business opportunities you mentioned yesterday? The equity? The accounts tied to my late husband's savings? Were those for me too?" Her mouth twitched, annoyance flashing like a camera bulb. "My husband and I have responsibilities," she snapped softly. "We're building a future, and it would help us, help all of us if things were organized properly." There it was, the real reason. Afraid, I breathed a quiet sigh that carried more sadness than sound. "Baby," I said to my son, "look at me." He raised his eyes slowly, and for the first time, I didn't see my little boy. I saw a grown man stuck between love and pressure, torn between loyalty and fear. "You know your father didn't raise us to trick each other," I whispered. "He taught us to stand tall, even when life leans hard on our shoulders." His lip trembled just slightly. "And right now," I continued, "you're leaning in the wrong direction. I need to know why." He opened his mouth, closed it again, then rubbed his forehead. "We're behind on things," he finally admitted. "Bills, investments, some business costs we didn't expect. I thought if we managed your pension smarter and maybe sold the house, we could handle it." His wife shot him a sharp look, like he'd said too much. My heart tightened, not in anger, but in grief. "So you were counting on my resources to fix your financial mess?" He flinched. "Mom, don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" I asked gently. How do you want me to describe being strict of choice in my own life? He had no answer. His wife leaned forward, her tone sharper now. This dramatizing is exactly why we didn't come to you sooner. We were doing what needed to be done. Needed by who? I repeated again, softer than ever. She inhaled sharply through her nose. So let me be clear, I said, sitting forward. My pension, my home, my husband's accounts, my savings, my name on those papers, those are not tools for you to manage your troubles. My son whispered, We just thought. You should have thought about honesty, I said. You should have thought about trust. You should have thought about the woman who raised you. Silence again, thick, uncomfortable, truthful. I stood, slowly, steadying myself with the arm of the chair. Now listen closely, I said quietly. I'm not shutting you out, I'm not abandoning you, but I am drawing a line. I walked to the table where the folder sat closed, exactly as I left it last night. This ends today. The papers will remain untouched, no signatures, no conversations with lawyers without me present, no decisions about my life without my voice in the room. My daughter-in-law tensed, and if either of you tries to move behind me again, I added, I promise you, out of love, not anger, you will find yourselves shut out of more than just this house. My son's breath hitched. His wife finally dropped her gaze. I wasn't done. There's more you don't know yet, I said quietly, and it's coming sooner than you think. Their eyes snapped up. But I didn't explain, not yet. I simply walked to the front door, opened it, and stepped aside. You both go home now. We'll talk again when I'm ready. They walked out slowly, confused, worried, and for the first time, not in control. The sun dipped low that evening, brushing the windows with a warm orange glow, like it was trying to soften the day I'd just lived through. But warmth outside didn't change the tightness sitting under my collarbone. After my son and his wife left, the house felt too still, like the walls were listening, waiting, holding their breath right along with me. I sat at the table for a long while, hands wrapped around a cooling cup of tea, letting my mind settle. A soft awe slipped from my lips without me realizing it, that tender little sound a body makes when it's carrying too much for too long. The folder sat in front of me, untouched but heavy with meaning, my husband's handwriting still marking the first page, like a quiet whisper from the past. I ran my fingers over the edges of the documents, tracing the story beneath the paper. Nothing in that folder had changed since yesterday, but everything in me had. Right when I was about to rise and stretch my stiff back, a gentle knock tapped against my front door, slow, spaced out, like someone unsure if they even belonged there. My heart lifted just a little. Only one person I knew knocked like that. When I opened the door, my neighbor, Grace, stood on my porch with her coat pulled tight and her eyebrows pinched with worry. "Baby, you all right?" she asked softly, brushing a strand of silver hair behind her ear. I let out a shaky breath. "Come on in, honey." I was just sitting with my thoughts too long. She stepped inside, her presence filling the room with that familiar comfort only someone who's known you half your life can bring. She glanced at the folder on the table, then back at me. "Looks like trouble," she murmured. I whispered. "The kind that sneaks into your home wearing your own child's face." She winced with sympathy and pressed her palm to my arm. "Sit down. Tell me what happened." I didn't start with the worst part. I started with the moment the phone rang, the way my son's voice cracked, the way the bank manager looked at me. All the little pieces that stacked up like uneven stones until the whole pile came crashing. As I spoke, Grace's eyes softened, brightened, then darkened again with each twist in the day. At one point, she let out a soft gasp, leaning back against her chair. "Lord, have mercy," she whispered. I knew that girl had a sharp tongue, but I didn't know she had sharp hands too. I let out a small, tired laugh, just a tiny sound, but enough to loosen my chest for a moment. It wasn't just her, he went right along with it. Grace's face folded with grief. "Sometimes love makes people foolish." I hummed. "Sometimes fear does too." She reached for my hand. "So, what you gonna do next?" That question sat like a stone between us, heavy but necessary. I need time to think, I said. There are pieces of this puzzle they don't know about yet, and I'm not sure how they'll react when I show them. Grace nodded slowly. Well, whatever you do, make sure you're protected. I am. We talked a little longer, letting the evening breathe around us. At one point, I caught sight of the photo frame on the shelf, me, my husband, and our son when he was only 10, all three of us smiling so wide the sun seemed to sit right behind us. Something in my chest just dropped. How did we get here, Grace? I whispered, my voice trembling like a thin branch in a storm. How did a boy I raised on honesty end up lying straight to my face? She squeezed my fingers gently. He lost his way. Happens to grown folks more than it should. A soft tremor shook me, something between a sigh and a grieving breath. I don't want to lose him, I admitted, but I can't let him walk over me either. Grace gave me a knowing look. That right there? That's the balance every mama eventually has to learn. We sat in silence, letting that truth settle between us. My house, usually filled with the hum of small comforts, felt different, like it was shifting into a new chapter whether I wanted it to or not. After some quiet moments, Grace stood and reached for her coat. I won't stay long, she said softly. But if you need anything, food, company, a place to breathe, my door is open. Thank you, honey, I whispered, pulling her into a warm embrace. You always show up when the wind feels too strong. She smiled and headed out into the cool evening air. I watched her walk down the walkway, her shadow stretching long behind her under the porch light. When I closed the door, silence returned. But this time, it wasn't empty. It felt expectant. I walked back to the table, pulled out the chair, and sat with the folder again. My husband's signature seemed to glow a little beneath the lamp, almost like he was telling me, "You're not done yet." I flipped through the paperwork one more time, slower than before. Every detail mattered, every instruction, every account number, every quiet intention my husband had left behind to protect me, even after he was gone. Then something caught my eye, a page I hadn't read carefully enough the first time. A small handwritten note in his familiar script, tucked near the back. My throat tightened as I unfolded it. Just a few lines, gentle, firm, loving, almost as if he'd known this moment would come. Oh, slipped out of me, shaky and emotional. Sweetheart, what were you trying to prepare me for? The room felt different again, charged, heavy, full of the echo of his voice, even though he'd been gone for years. I placed the note down and pressed my fingertips gently against it. The truth was still unfolding. Slowly. Painfully. And I knew one thing. When I called my son again, when I finally invited him back here, everything between us was going to shift. Not end, but shift. The story wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I didn't call my son the next morning. I let the sun rise without rushing a single thought, let my coffee sit warm in my hands, let my breath soften the tight corners of my chest. Some endings need stillness before they're spoken out loud. Some truths need a quiet room and a steady spine. The note my husband left stayed on the table beside me, folded with more care than anything else in my home. Every time my eyes drifted toward it, something inside me stirred. Something strong, steady, almost humming with the same determination he carried in his shoulders when life got hard. I felt him with me, guiding me, nudging me toward what had to be done. By noon, I had made up my mind. I dressed slow, choosing a soft blue sweater he always said made my eyes look like calm water, and slipped my shoes on. I picked up the folder, pressed my thumb over his signature one more time, and whispered a tiny sound, just a breathy little that carried both sorrow and strength. Then I dialed my son. He answered on the second ring, voice tight. "Are you okay?" "I'm all right," I replied. "I need you to come over." Alone. There was a pause. A cautious inhale, then, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. And he was. He arrived with his shoulders slightly hunched, like the world had been pushing on him from every side. When he stepped into my living room, he looked at me the way someone looks at a door they aren't sure they still have the right to walk through. "Sit," I said gently. He did. The house felt different than it had in weeks, still heavy, but not with fear anymore, more with truth waiting to be spoken. I sat across from him, resting the folder on my lap. "Baby," I began softly, "before we talk about anything else, I need you to hear something." His eyes lifted, tired, hopeful, scared, all at once. "I love you," I said. "That hasn't changed. It won't ever change. But love doesn't mean letting someone harm you, not even by accident." He blinked fast, swallowing hard. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I never meant to. I raised a hand gently." "You'll have time to say everything you need to. But first, I'm going to read you something." I opened the folder and pulled out the note. His gaze followed every move, almost trembling. "This," I said, "is from your father." He froze. "Before you hear it, I want you to know your daddy loved you with every bone in his body." My voice caught, but I steadied it and read, "If you're reading this, it means decisions are being made that may shake this family. I've left everything in your mother's hands because I know her strength. I trust her judgment. And if our son is involved in any trouble, help him, but only in ways that honor the love we raised him with. Protect yourself first, then guide him back home." When I finished, the silence that fell between us was thick enough to touch. My son leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands covering his mouth. A small, broken sound slipped out, half sigh, half cry, and my heart tugged, tender and aching. "I messed up," he whispered through his fingers. "I messed up so bad." "Yes," I said quietly, "you did." He dropped his hands and met my eyes, tears pooling. "I should have talked to you. I should have trusted you. I felt like everything was falling apart, and I let her convince me that using your money was the only way to keep us afloat." "That wasn't her decision to make," I replied, voice steady. "And it wasn't yours either. Not like that." He nodded, wiping at his face, shoulders shaking lightly with regret. "I don't even recognize myself, Mom. When did I become someone who could do that to you?" I reached over, laid my palm on his trembling hand. "Fear makes good people do foolish things, but it doesn't excuse the harm." He nodded again, softer this time. "What happens now?" That was the question hanging in the air for days. I opened the folder, pulling out the legal documents related to his business accounts. Accounts my husband had tied my name to before he passed. Accounts that could make or break everything my son was struggling to keep together. "These," I said gently, "are staying with me." He nodded, accepting it quietly. "I'm not taking anything from you," I continued. "But I'm not handing anything over either. Not until I know you're making decisions that honor yourself and your family." His lower lip quivered. "I understand. And your wife," I added, "will not speak to my lawyer again. Not about my assets, not about this house, not about my pension. If she tries, everything shuts down." He let out a small, shaky exhale. A tiny "ah" slipped from him, almost childlike in its vulnerability. "I'll handle it. I know you will," I said, "because I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing." I watched his shoulders loosen, just a little, but enough to show the man I raised was still in there somewhere, fighting his way back to daylight. "Mom," he whispered, "can I fix this? Really fix it?" "You can," I said, squeezing his fingers, "but not in one day. Trust takes time. Healing takes time. But you're still my child, and I still believe you can do better." A tear slid down his cheek. "I will." We sat there for a long moment, hands intertwined, the room holding its breath like it was witnessing something sacred. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something close. A beginning. When he finally stood to leave, he paused by the door. "For not giving up on me?" I smiled softly, though it trembled at the edges. "Your daddy wouldn't let me." He let out a quiet, emotional laugh, just a small puff of breath, and left the house with his shoulders a little straighter. After he was gone, I closed the door gently and leaned against it, letting every emotion wash through me. Relief, sadness, strength, all tangled together like threads of an unfinished quilt. I wasn't done with this journey, he wasn't done either. But for the first time in a long while, we were walking toward the light instead of away from it, and that was enough for for now. Before we close this chapter, tell me where you're watching from. Every comment you leave feels like a hand reaching back toward mine. And if this tale stirred up any memories of your own, click that like button so others can find their way to our little storytelling family.